Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our grade 4 coding class for today, 31 July 2020. Just want to welcome everybody. It's Friday, and I hope you guys had a good day so far. So we are almost at the end of the day, and then you guys can relax a little bit and have some fun this weekend. I know that I want to go out a bit and go for a short hike maybe. So I'm really looking forward to this weekend, and I hope you guys are as well. I want to welcome everybody that are joining us on YouTube, or maybe we have some new students in class today. I want to say welcome. My name is Mike Geldenes. Everybody just calls me Sir or Mr. G. So that's all okay with me. Okay, guys, today we're going to finish up, hopefully, with these changing variables. I know it is a difficult lesson, and there are so many things to consider and keep in mind. So it is a tough one. But each day we learn a little more, and I just want to say how proud I am of you guys, and what an accomplishment it is for you guys to actually be doing coding right now, and what a privilege it is to do it right now. Because many people only start coding after they finish school, so it is so nice to actually get some. Now I'm struggling to find the word, just to get some exposure. There we go. To get some exposure to coding during our school years, that once you leave school, you already have a base to build on. Even if you can't really do all the concepts right now, you have an idea. The words, you'll recognize the terms, you will understand some of the concepts. So it's a very nice thing to be able to be exposed to coding so early on in your school career. So guys, I just want to tell you guys, I'm very proud of all of you for keep coming back and trying these things. Even, for example, if we do this one lesson that is so difficult, that we keep going. And you know what, even if we just take one thing at the end of this lesson from what we've done, or that you at least understand what is a variable or what is a function, then at least that is already something that you didn't know before. Okay. So let's quickly go through, because we have so many new students joining us on YouTube, and I see in class we keep getting new students coming in. So I have to spend some time just to bring everybody up to date on what we are busy with, where we are, so that they are not entirely lost when we go into code.org and start talking about all these things. Just a couple of ground rules before we get going. Please, guys, remember to keep chat to content-specific information, because there are a lot of us. Sometimes information get lost in between, and we raise our hand if we want to chat. But I don't have a problem with you guys. We always have a fun time. You guys help me out. I do have to mention, though, if the most important thing is just the videos, please keep them off, because they do pop up over my screen and they can be a bit distracting, and maybe it's also disruptive to our other students. So let's stick to the rules, and we can all just learn nicely together. Okay, guys. What are our objectives? Is to identify areas where they can use variables to modify quantities during runtime. So that sounds strange, but as we saw yesterday, we will use our math blocks and we will assign values to certain things. And then while we run through, every time we repeat an action, our math block or our variables will change because of our math blocks. We might take actions away or we might add a number. So that is what that is. As we run through a scenario where distances might change or values might change, those things will come in play. Our code needs to adjust as we go through each puzzle. And then also to examine code to find places where variables can be substituted for specific values. Okay, like I said, it's always easier to work with a specific value than it is to work with equations and changing values. So if we can spot where we can use specific values, that's always a lot better. Okay, and the purpose of this is we don't always know what a value is going to be before we begin your program. So sometimes values change while your code is running. This lesson will illustrate how code with changing values can be helpful. Okay. Let's quickly go through some of the words we have to know. Just remember, the more I repeat these things, the more they will get stuck in your head. And when people start talking about these things, then you will be able to recall them so much better, so much faster. So what is a variable? A variable is a label for a piece of information used in a program. So remember, we assign values. So we will give something a label. We can name that label anything we want, but maybe an action, and we will assign values to that actions that we will then use in our program. A constant, that is a variable used throughout a program that never changes value. Okay, so just remember, constant means never changing, always stays the same. And here we have Anesu again. Well done, Anesu. Anesu tried doing the puzzle again. Look, guys, this is what I'm talking about. Even though the variables are so difficult, maybe Anesu weren't quite comfortable using the variables yet. That's also okay. She still managed to complete the puzzle just by coding block for block, action for action. And I'm so proud of her because it's now, I think, the entire week I've received homework from her, at least. And here we can see she's starting to understand the concepts of what's happening, using the repeats. So well done. I'm really looking forward to receiving puzzles from the rest of you. So I really want to encourage you, always try. Because remember, with coding, there are more than one way. As they say, as the saying goes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So yes, this code was solved without using a function, without using a variable. That is okay. Keep coding, practice your art. Remember, coding is our art. Maybe some of you can, but I can't draw pictures or paint. So coding is my art, and I like to practice and play around to see what I can accomplish, what I can create with my code. Okay, guys, here's our variable block. Variables, remember, are just placeholders. They hold a specific place for information that can change. And here we will assign a value. And remember, once we use these placeholders throughout our code, if we come to the start of our code, we can just change the value, and everywhere where we've used our placeholder, that value will then change throughout our code. So this is very nice. Once we start having really long codes, variables are such an important aspect to have in your arsenal that you can go back to and use. Because remember, if we have a place where we had to add a value every time. Now, if you have to change any value in your code, then you will have to go to every place where you've used that value and go and change it. But with variables, we will set it once at the start of our code, and we can go and change it at the start of our code. And once you change it there, it changes throughout your entire code. And here, let's quickly read. Having a placeholder makes it possible to write a program even when you don't know all of your values until later. Okay. And our toolbox, just a reminder to those of you that are a little bit new, our toolbox looks a little bit different. And here we have to learn what we are actually doing. That is why I also want us to get used to the terminology, okay? The words that we use in coding. Because once you get to know the words, you will know where to find everything, okay? So as you guys can see, currently we have actions, we have loops, we have conditionals, functions, variables, math, and comments. Okay, so you really have to know that, hey, if I want to pick up something that is just an action, I will go look in actions. If I want to repeat something a number of times, I will go to my loops and I will find it in loops, and I will be able to find my repeat block in there. If I want to write code that I can save for later, and but what I can recall over and over again, I know, okay, that's a function. I'm going to write a function, and I'm going to go look to my function category, and I will find all my code in there. Okay. And then remember, here's just a reminder. Here's an example of our placeholder. This is the thing that makes it so especially the puzzle we are going to do today. If I don't explain this to you guys again quickly, it is so confusing. I promise you it is. You really have to keep your head unscrewed quite tightly if I can say it like that. Remember, this is just a value. I assign a value to the word gather, and that is 2. So if I read this, repeat 2 times. And this is what I mean about changing values throughout your code. Every time we use gather, even if we use it 100 times in our code, if I come here and I change the value over here, it will change gather, the word, the puzzle block, throughout my entire code to the new value that I assign here. Okay, so just remember, variables are placeholders. They hold a space. Here we go. What is the space? The value is 2. There we go. And I just also want to tell you guys, I will show you, remember the puzzle block is just a value. The unit will depend on the block we use it in. So if it says times here, it will be 2 times. If we use a move block, it will be move 2 pixels, for example. Or if we use it in a directional block where we have to turn, it will be turn 2 degrees. So it is just a value. The unit will still be determined by the block we use it in. Okay, so whether it's times, degrees, pixels, that is determined by the block we use it in. So the variable will only be a value. Okay. And then there's our new category for our math blocks that will also be available in our toolbox. There we go. And those are our math blocks. Okay, remember, we are going to start using equations. And Why do we want to use equations? We'll use math blocks to account for any changes in our variables. And yesterday we saw that if the distance between items increase, then we can write a code that can still repeat, but every time it repeats, it adds 1 or adds 2, adds 5. All depends on how far we want to move or how many times we want to increase. So we can, and then you can see we have a drop down. Oops, go back one. We have our drop down here, and then you'll be able to find all your math in here. And guys, please be patient. We are really not wasting time. This is really important stuff. If we just go to code.org, we won't understand what to do. So remember, there's a process about learning. So yes, there's a process we have to follow, and we have to understand these things. And the best way to do it is to visualize what we are doing. Okay, and as you can see, here we go. I think this is our last slide. So don't worry about what we have here. Remember, now we've set the value, gather 1. So in here, we have set gather to gather plus 1. So all that is telling us over there, that is, remember, variables have assigned values. And the value here will be 1. That can also form part of your math block. So all that this one is telling us now, it is 1 plus 1. Because what do we have as our set value? 1. But we have to remember that every time, so the first time it loops, it's 1 plus 1. The answer will be 2. So the next time it repeats, it will be 2 plus 1, and then 3 plus 1, 4 plus 1, depending on how many times we repeat our code. Okay. There we go, guys. That's it. Let's go to code.org. So if you give me a moment, I'm just quickly going to open code.org on my side, and then I will share the link with you. There we go. That was our homework challenge puzzle. And let me share the link with you guys. There we go. Guys, click on the link. Join me on this puzzle, and then we are going to get started in this puzzle. Remember, first things always, let's read our instructions. Just now, give this puzzle a try. We have to collect all the nectar from our flowers, and we have to collect all the honeycomb, or make honey with the honeycomb we have. Okay. And I see Nomvoya's got a question, or let me quickly open there. Hi Nomvoya, how are you?
I'm fine, and you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. How can I help?
Sir, I thought we were playing Kahoot at dance party.
Okay. Okay, guys, remember I did mention, okay, thank you very much, Nomvoya. Yes, guys, I am still struggling to incorporate Kahoot and code.org. I don't want you guys just to answer definition questions, because with Kahoot, I have to ask a question so that you guys can actually select an option. I know some of you have played Kahoot, some of you might not have. I am working on it, and I have spoken to some other teachers as well, to some of the other coding teachers, to see how we can incorporate the two. What would be fun for you guys? So guys, as soon as we have a nice, how can I say, something nice to present to you guys, then we will definitely do it. I promise. Okay, so want you to be patient with the definitely start for you guys. Okay, guys, so first things first. Let's check our toolbox. Here are all our actions, our loops, while path and repeat, our conditionals, and then our functions. Right now, we don't have any functions. We can write our own function, and we'll definitely write a function for this, our variables. And remember, we can change this, and our math blocks, and our comments. Okay, so let's get started. Remember what I always tell you guys, what's the first thing we do? We just code our first sequence, the first thing that we need to do. Okay, so the first thing we do, that we always just try and get going. Try to start at some point. Okay, so right now, the first thing we'll do is we'll just move forward. Just move forward. And then we see we are on a flower. Now, what I want you, just to give you guys a tip, when we do a puzzle like this, where the value changes every time, just pretend that there is one of each, just so we can have the actions. What are all the actions we are going to perform? So we're going to move forward, and then we're going to do an action. What action are we going to do on this flower? We are going to get nectar, okay? There we go. That is the actions we are going to do. Okay. What's the next thing we'll do? We will turn right. Thank you, Zoe. Yes, Zoe said get nectar. What will be the next thing we do? We are going to turn. And we have to decide which way are we going to turn. We are going to turn right. Okay, so that would put us right over there, facing downward. Okay, so next thing we will do again is we will move forward. Move forward. And then we are going to be on the honeycomb. So we are going to collect, or not collect, we are going to make honey. Okay, guys. So those are all our steps. And we can see that is what we're going to do in all of these. We will move forward, get a flower, or get nectar, turn, and make honey. Here also, it's just the value that is going to change. When we are here, we're also going to move forward, get nectar, turn, move forward, make honey. And then again, we're going to move forward, collect nectar, turn, move forward, and collect honey. It's just the distance and the values that are going to change. So these are all our actions. We actually have one more action. Once we are here, we have to turn again to face in that direction. We will turn left. So I hope you guys understand this is just our normal code. This is the very basic one. We just have to imagine, what are we going to do? Move, get nectar, turn, move forward, make honey, and turn. That is our basic steps, okay? Now we want to repeat. We're going to repeat it every time, okay? Remember, variables, we will get to the variable later. Let's just think of what we have to do. Okay, so now we can see that this is actually a pattern. It's little stairs that we are going to repeat. So maybe what we can do is we can write a function that we can call stairs, or we can call it collect stairs, or whatever we want to call it. Maybe we can collect stairs. Let's just call it stairs. Okay, so our function that we are going to write is going to be stairs. So what we can go and do now is we can go to our functions. We can select our function block, and then here we can just say stairs, or let's say collect stairs. Doesn't matter what we call it, collect stairs. There we go. Now all these items will be in our code collect stairs. Now this is where we have to think about our actions. Each time, every action is going to change. So the move forward is changing. We can see that. Here it's 1, then it's 2, then it's 3. Get nectar, it's going to change. It's 3, 2, 1. The turn right, that won't change because there's only one turn, one turn, one turn. So that's going to stay the same. Move forward, again, we're going to change because now it's down 1, 2, and 3. Make honey will change 3, 2, 1. And our turn left is going to stay the same. So now we have to think, okay, each one of these, let's put it inside our function. And we're going to work inside the function for now. Remember, because there's nothing in our workspace now, we are now just focusing on our function. We can build it over here as well and drag it in later, but we might as well just work inside our function right now. Okay. Now, remember, variable changes. Every time we repeat something, it's going to be a different value. So how are we going to do that? We will put each item in a repeat, and then we will work on the variable. What needs to change so our actions change. So let's just put everything in a loop quickly. Repeat. We are going to repeat that, but we're not going to repeat it a certain number of times because the value changes. We can't put it once because then everything changes. So I'm going to throw that away. I'm going to leave the value open right now. But each thing we have to, so I'm going to have to put in, we said move is going to change, get nectar is going to change, move is going to change, and make honey is going to change. So I'm going to add 4 repeat blocks or 4 loops inside my code. I'm going to use this one. I'm just going to copy it. And then I don't have to take out the 1 every time. There we go. There's 3 and there's 4. We're going to keep it in the same sequence. So let's see, our last action will be turn left. So I still want my turn left to be right here at the bottom. There we go. Then we have make honey. I'm going to put that inside. We have move forward. I'm just doing it from the bottom because it's easier to click one item down from the bottom and just drag it up. Now the turn right is going to be 1. That's outside. We're not going to repeat the turn right. Get nectar, we are going to repeat. And the move forward, we are going to repeat. There we go. Now that is all inside our function. These are the things that we are going to do. Now we have to ask ourselves the question, how many times do we want to do these things? How many times do we want to do these things? Now everything changes every time. So we have to work with a value. We have to get some kind of value somewhere. Okay, so let's just set a value. Let's set a value. I'm going to put this one in place. Remember set, we put it right at the start. It's the same with our colors or the width of our lines or the pattern we are going to use. We set it right at the start or in front of something that you want to change. So if I put it in front here or right at the start, all my values will be the same throughout. What am I going to call this? Let's call it gather because we want to gather the nectar and we want to make the honey. So let's call it gather. Rename, you remember, go to the drop down, rename this variable. I want to rename it and then you can give it a specific name. Okay, what are we going to call it? Let's, like I said, let's call it gather. Or you can make it work because it's not just gathering the nectar, it's also making honey. So let's call it work. Create. There we go. That's our, if you go, that is now our variable name. If we go to variables, we'll see, there we go. Work is inside. There we've got our work. Now we also have to give work a value. Okay. Let's just start with 1 because we can always add and subtract from 1. 1 move, 1 move. There we have it. the basic, what we're going to do is one move, one move. Okay, so here we have a set value for work, and it's 1. Now, work can be either gather, work can either be get nectar, or it can be make honey. So guys, if we go to our function now, let's see. The first step is to move forward. How many times are we going to move forward? Maybe someone can tell me in the chat box quickly. To get this first flower, how many times are we going to move forward? We're only going to move forward. Let's see, I've got a chat. 1 time. Thank you, Zoe. Yes. So remember, I'm not going to put 1 in here now. I'm going to put work in there, because work is a value of 1. So I'm going to go to my variables. There's work, and I'm going to put work in there. Repeat 1 time, move forward. Okay, so that is what I'm going to do here. Repeat 1 time, move forward. Now I have to ask myself, this first step, how many times am I going to collect nectar? How many times do I have to collect nectar? I have to collect nectar. We can see 1, 2, 3 times. Now, I'm not just going to put 3 times in here, because remember, we've got a value. We have to work with work. Okay, we have to use this work because we've got the value here. So how am I going to change the value so that each time I use it, it will change? So that's when we go to our variables. Now, inside our thing, we have to remember that, how am I going to get to 3? How am I going to get to 3? We'll go to our math blocks. We'll add that in there. How am I going to get to 3? Because now remember, each time I'm going to go less. I'm not going to go more, I'm going to go less. So what I will do is I will start with, because I want to minus every time. I want to minus 1. And remember, our work is a value of 1. We're working with 1 now. So if I want to minus 1, I'm going to go put my work. Where's my variable? I'm going to put in work there, because remember, that's value of 1. So how am I going to get 3? What minus 1 will give me 3? What minus 1 will give me 3? Because remember, we're coming down now. It's going 3, 2, 1. So I have to minus 1 every time. There we go. Thank you, guys. Yes. So I'm going to change this to 4. So repeat. 4 minus 1 gives me 3. So repeat 3 times, get nectar. There we go. Perfect. Turn right is going to be once. Then this one, move forward. How many times am I going to move forward this first one? This first one, I am only going to move forward once. So there we go. I'm going to stick to 1 here. So I'm going to go to my variables and I'm going to use work. Repeat 1 time. Remember, this is not just for the first block, this first sequence here, this first stair. Just this 1 stair over here. We are writing the code for this 1 stair, but we are using all this so that each time we repeat it, the values will change. So this is what makes variables a little tricky, but once we get the concept, it works perfectly. It works so well. Then you can have a million stairs and our formulas will work it out for us. Now the same with make honey. We also have to make 3, so we will use the same code or the same math equation that we did for get nectar. So we're going to use this same thing. We'll go to our math blocks. And we want to minus, because it gets less every time. So I want to minus 1, and we have our value here of 1 is work. So we'll use work in here. Variables, work. I'm going to put work in here. There we go, and that 1 will throw away. And we know that if we want to get to 3 honeycombs, we have to minus 4. What we can do now is we can test this. We can test this to see if our first step works or not. So let's go to our variable or our functions, collect stairs. We put it in the code. Now this is just to check. And I see I have a one day, I've got a question. So how do you do for work? Okay, remember one day, the work is a value. Here we have the value, it's 1. So it's, and remember if we look at the flower here, it's 3. We want to change the value of work. So it's not really do for work, it's 4 minus 1, because here's the value of 1. Set work to 1. That's why I said we have to remember that this is just a placeholder for a value. So 4 minus 1 gives us 3. And the reason we start with 4 is because we want to come down every time. So every time we loop, now the answer here is going to be 3. The next time we loop, it's going to be 3 minus 1 is 2. Then 2 minus 1 is 1. So that is why we started with the 4. So that if we minus 1, we can get to this value over here of 3. And Taryn says she's done. Well done. So let's run this, see if it works. Perfect. That's what we want. So we know that our function for stairs works well. Now, how are we going to repeat our function but change the values? How are we going to repeat our function but change our values? And I see I've got some hands up here. I think Zoe's hand or Taryn's hand. I'm not sure who was first, Zoe or Taryn. I think Taryn was first because her name is at the bottom. So the first one comes in and then the one puts it on top. So I'm going to unmute Taryn and see. Hi, Taryn. How are you?
Fine, thanks. And you?
Great, thank you. How are we going to change the values of our steps, Taryn?
I need to put stairs because that's the name of my function. Then I said set work to. Then I went to math blocks and got the 1 plus 1. Took out the first block and replaced it with work. Okay. And then put it all in a loop that repeats 3 times.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to try that quickly, and we're going to check. So you can just follow on the screen. I've take note what you said, and then we quickly try that. Okay, thank you, Taryn.
And it's in exactly 29 blocks.
29 blocks. Great. I'm going to check that out. Okay, guys. Now, what Taryn said, remember, we've got 1 step here. How many steps do we have? We have 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. So we're going to repeat our collect stairs 3 times. Okay, so we go to our loops, we add a loop in here, and we're going to collect stairs 3 times. Now just remember, if we just change, this is going to remain the same. We're going to do the same thing over and over. Then the values will be 4 minus 1 will be 3, but we can see the values change here. We have to now remember that every time we loop, we want the distance to increase and we want the value of the action to decrease. Okay, so every time we are going to move, or every time we are going to repeat the collect stairs, what do we want to do? Okay, so let's set it again. So we will have our variable, which is set work. Here we go. Now, what do we want to happen here? Okay, what do we want? Oh, oops, sorry, I threw it away. What do we want to happen? If we go to our math box, now we know that every time we move forward, we want work to +1. So here it's just 1, but now I'm moving 2 spots. So every time I move forward, I want to +1. What do I want to +1? Work. So I just have to remember to go to my variables and put work inside here. So now, with my next step, if I see repeats first time, it's just going to do the stairs, and then it's going to add 1 to my, it's going to add 1 to my variable, and then it's going to repeat. Remember, it has to be inside. If we put it on the outside, it will repeat this 3 times first, then moves on. This is where sequence is quite important. We put it inside. What's going to happen? Work +1. So now we're going to move. And our work is 1, so 2 times. But now you can think, do I have to change anything for work here? No, we don't. Because if we look inside our code, work now is 2. So 4 minus 2 will give us 2. And look at how many nectar there is, 2. Look how many honeycombs there are, 2. And if we get to the third time, work will now be 2 plus 1 is 3. So 4 minus 3 is going to be 1. Perfect. So this is all we need right here for our code to run. And look, we've got 29 blocks. It's our function and our code that we wrote in the workspace. So let's run this, reset, and run. Wow, look at that. Reset quickly. There we go. Guys, I just do want you to remember if our code runs here, once it gets to the green function block, you can follow what happens inside here. Remember, as soon as the action gets performed, I want to show you, look at that. It highlights it in yellow. That is the action that gets performed. Okay? So you can follow along. Get nectar. How many times? 4 minus work. It's 3. Okay, it's because work is 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. We've got 3 nectar there. We're going to collect. If you go step, next step, 1, 2, 3 times. Next step, green. So even if we use the function here, it refers back to our function, and you can follow along to see what is actually happening in our code. Okay, so let's reset, run it all the way through. There we go, and Anessa said she did it. Well done, Anessa. And Tara, well done, guys. That's perfect. So that is what I remember what I said. We start out with our first action. We assign a value, and then we figure out, what do I need to do to get to the next one? Now, guys, here you guys can try and do that again. Look at what happens. Here it's a little more tricky because now it doesn't increase by 1. What does it increase by? It increases by 2. I'm moving 1, I'm picking up 1. Then I'm moving 3, picking up 3. Moving 5, picking up 5. Moving 7, picking up 7. So see if you can solve this. I think we will then maybe Monday spend 1 more day on this, because this puzzle might take us an entire lesson as well. I really want us to get the hang of functions, but see if you can solve this. Spend some time on this puzzle. If you are able to solve it, or if you can't solve it with variables, send it, just code it and see what you can do to actually complete this puzzle. Guys, but then I want to just say, I'm proud of you. Well done. I will see you again then, same time, same place on Monday. There's my email address that you can use to send me any questions, or if you want me to help you, by all means, guys, use that. And I'm more than willing to help you out. Have a wonderful weekend, guys. Bye-bye.